today we got a special guest, a two-time guest now, none other than Russ Lee from the legendary band Newsong. These guys have been shaping the Christian music scene for decades, and they're back with a brand new album, Church People. We'll be diving into that and the stories behind that. They're also founders of WinterJam. WinterJam for years has brought some of the most biggest in Christian music, touring around the world and life-changing message of Christ. And so, Russ, thank you so much for chatting with me.
Listen, I'm glad to be here with you, and thanks for having me on. Thanks for saying all those nice things about me and WinterJam. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So we've been a podcast now for 4 years, and you were our very first guest. I don't know if you remember, back in 2021, and you did a show. You came down to Florida and did a show at a church, and you were our first guest. And yeah, we tend to forget those first few episodes because we had no idea what we were doing, and we still don't know what we're doing, but gotten a little better at it.
Well, I'm probably going to need to confiscate that first episode for the purpose of survival of some kind or something.
There you go. Well, Russ, you guys just wrapped up another successful year of WinterJam. Tell us a little bit about WinterJam this past year.
Well, we had wonderful crowds. Oh yeah, we had wonderful crowds at WinterJam 2025. When you start the tour, you never know how it's going to flow and how it's going to go. You've never had that group of artists together on a tour in that order, and we never know. Every night and every year is just a big step of faith for us. But it turned out to be a wonderful year. We had amazing crowds. Almost every night of the tour was to capacity. And we just had a tremendous response to the gospel. We had thousands and thousands of kids sponsored and helped in third world countries. So, by our standards, if we're singing gospel music and the church is together and God is being glorified and people are coming to know Christ, we feel like it's a good night. And when you string a bunch of those together, 38 to be exact this year, and you see God do tremendous things, it's very rewarding. And as difficult as the schedule is sometimes, the benefit is knowing that God is moving and working and you get to be a part of it. And this year was no exception. And in a lot of ways, we've been waiting for WinterJam to come back to its self, if you will, since COVID hit and since COVID shut us down a few years ago. And it's been building back, and we've had some great years, but this year it really felt like WinterJam was back, and it felt like WinterJam, and it was just a tremendous tour, and that in itself is a miracle because everybody on the tour at one point or another was sick. There was some kind of viral thing running through the tour, and so we kind of watched one bus a weekend get sick with this thing, and so there were many nights that artists were really going the second mile and pushing through, and not feeling well physically, but feeling called spiritually and doing what they're called to do and committed to do. And so I don't know that the audience ever really knew that, except unless an artist told them from the stage that they'd been to the doctor that day. But we certainly knew it on the tour. And so, knowing that we were all battling through something together, I think brought us a little bit closer even. So it turned out to be a good year, and it turned out to be a tremendous blessing to have the folks that we had out on the tour.
Yeah. My mom and my stepdad went to the Yum Center, to the Louisville show, and she said that Colton was feeling under the weather, and I think she said that he even mentioned it from the stage. And she said I think his set was cut short because he only did like 2 songs because he said he was feeling bad. But I was like, well, Mom, WinterJam, they go pretty quick, they get him in and get him out, But the funny story is,
she was right. He did cut his set short that night by 2 songs because he wasn't feeling.
Yeah. So my stepfather, he's not a believer, but and it's so funny. And I tell people about WinterJam all the time because there's something there for everybody, different styles of music. And he is like a huge fan of Skillet, like big time. And he'll go see them whenever they're in town. And my mom thinks it's funny because, the message that they preach. And so she said he had no idea that WinterJam was like 4 hours long, and she didn't want to tell him that. And so he
That's funny.
sat there, and she kept looking down as he's sitting, and he's like, "When's Skillet coming on?" She's like, "Oh, they're last." And he just started shaking his head. And then when Skillet come out, she said he stood up and started singing every word and was waving
That's
his
great.
hands. And I said, "Hey," I said, "Mom," I was like, "the gospel was presented, and that was another seed planted, and he had to sit there all those hours to hear that, hear Christ." And so I'm sure
Oh,
you hear
sure.
those things all the time of people not saved that go see their favorite band or one of their favorite bands.
Oh yeah. Well, and one of the great things about WinterJam, as you know, is that we don't do it inside a church, and so folks that are afraid of going into a church because they're afraid of what might happen to them if they
Ceiling come down.
walk, yeah, if they walk through the doors, those folks will come to WinterJam, and having an artist like Skillet that is so committed to Christ but so popular inside and outside the church, is really a blessing because people come to see them because of their music, and they leave having heard the message of the gospel and the story behind all their music that they might not get as clearly if they go see Skillet at a big rock music festival or somewhere else because uh, you know um, it may not be the same as WinterJam because it's not just Skillet at this event that's Christian. It's every artist that's on the tour. And as you know, we a preacher, a speaker who's on the tour who shares the gospel clearly. We stop all the music, we close down the merchandise area, and we have someone share the gospel, and we give people the opportunity to respond. So that happens every single night of WinterJam, and by the grace of God, this year on WinterJam, we had over 42,000 people
Come
text
on.
in and say that they had prayed with our preacher, with our speaker, to receive Christ. They wanted to grow in their faith. They prayed and they meant it. To pray is one thing, but to text in and say, "Hey, I prayed with you, and I want to know what I need to do next," and so we're able to follow up on those decisions. That's the people who had still had phone battery and had phone service. So those are the decisions that we know about, and to me, that's just it's awesome and humbling and amazing to be able to be a part of something like that.
Sure. Well, Newsong, you guys just released a brand new album, Church People. How many albums does this make for you guys?
Man, you know what? That's a loaded question because I was thinking the other day, I was like, okay, I was looking over my publishing catalog and I was thinking, okay, how many songs do I have out there published, and how many do I have that are new songs, and how many of them, are on new song albums? And, I it's well over 100 songs that I have on new song records. So, and they were recording before I got there. So, man, I don't know, a lot. We've made a
A
lot of
lot.
albums, but but we had not released an album. We did the Just Jesus album that came out a couple of years ago, but we hadn't really done anything for almost 4 years when that album came out. Of course, that was through the COVID period as well, but we really hadn't focused on doing a project. And then the Just Jesus project came out. But then in less than 2 years, we put out this new album, Church People. And we started working on it actually last summer. So as far as writing and recording an album and getting it out, this was a pretty quick process on this project. But also the songs just came much quicker, and the process was so much easier. We really enjoyed making this album. Sometimes you do a record and you love the songs and you love the album, you love having the privilege of doing that, but by the end of the recording process you're so ready for it to be over. This album was not like that at all. We kind of looked at each other and said, "Wow, I guess we're done." That's crazy. We're done because I think start to finish, we only really worked on it probably a little less than 7 months. So that's probably a record for us of some kind. But we liked all the songs. We loved where the album was going. We knew what we felt called to say, and we worked with some great people outside of New Song that made us better as songwriters, better as artists, and so it was a very it was a fun process, but it also felt like it was an important process, and we needed to be focused on it. And we felt like I hate to sound cliche-ish, but we really felt like we were doing the Lord's work. We were like,
Yeah.
these are things that we really feel like need to be said, and God's calling us to say them. And so it was an intentional album. It's really fun. The songs are very indicative of the personalities behind the writing. So if you listen to this album a time or two, you'll know Eddie Carswell and Russ Lee, and even our co-writers a lot better.
Yeah. My favorite track on the album is Good Life. I really love that message. Could you tell us about Good Life?
Absolutely. Well, as you know, I did a song actually Eddie Carswell and I wrote together many years ago that became a popular song and gave me opportunities to go a lot of places, called I Smile. And it was on an album called Words in Time that I did over at Sparrow Capitol Records. And that song, I always loved that song because it kind of started with me realizing that Christians, if there's anybody in the world that should have joy and they should be able to express it, it should be followers of Christ. And so I wanted to write a happy song about knowing Jesus, because we write so many songs about the storms of life and about Jesus helping you overcome the storms. And we talk about the difficulties, of life and faith, but we seldom really celebrate the joys, and we don't write a lot of thankful, gratitude, happy songs. So that's where I Smile came from. And so when I started working on the idea and brought it to the guys, I really wanted to write a song that was kind of like I Smile Too. It was like I
Okay.
Smile Part Two. And it was really just a celebration, because I was thinking about the fact, my wife and I just celebrated 41 years of marriage. Um, 18 years ago, she was diagnosed with cancer, and our doctor didn't give us much hope, but God had other plans. And so now we've been happily married for 41 years. We have three beautiful children. We have four amazing grandchildren, and our lives are just so blessed. And I do this for a living, for heaven's sake. So
Yeah.
our lives our lives are so blessed. So we have a lot to celebrate, and on top of all of that, we know that every good and perfect gift comes down from God. And so, we wanted to say, hey, life is good. Life isn't bad. There's some difficult days, but life is good. And everything good in our life is a reflection of God's love for us. So that's really that was kind of the foundation and the discussions that we were having as we were writing Good Life.
Yeah. Now the album covers for church people. That's pretty, you know, that's classic. The old school carpet even and the walls and what was behind that? And I mean, was it pretty simple or
Well, we knew that for most church people, there's a room in your church somewhere that looks
Yeah.
like that. It's got an
Yep.
old forgotten upright piano in it, or maybe somewhere in a closet there's a flannel board that has, a
And it
velvet
has the
Jesus on
smell from the 1970s too.
it. Yeah, we should have made it scratch and sniff, because it probably smells like an old Sunday school room
Oh
somewhere.
yeah.
You know what? It's really about getting back to the roots of who we are. You know what I mean? There's my wife and I go to a great church, and we're in a wonderful Sunday school class, a small group. The people around us make our lives better. We've got people praying for us all the time, checking on us all the time, and they act like Christians should act. My wife and I are forced to up our game a little bit, because artists are notorious for being on the road all the time and not necessarily always being as connected to their church as they should be. And because it's hard for someone who tours and travels, who's in a different church every Sunday, to stay connected at their home church. But we're surrounded by people who reach out to us and who check on us and who make sure that we're connected. And my wife's there every Sunday. She's not on the road with me, she's at church. And so people are always checking in, and trying to figure out how we're doing and if we need anything. And I was just thinking, that's what body life is like. That's what the church is like. And so if we know Jesus and we love him, then it definitely should be reflected in our actions. So that's really kind of the driving force behind church people. And it's really kind of like you can close your eyes and think back of all the great things you loved about church, and that feeling of security and that feeling of hope and that community of faith. that is unlike anything else in this world. There's nothing like the church.
Yeah.
And so that's really what we were hoping to capture in that song.
Yeah. Well, it looked like you enjoyed performing it too every night at WinterJam too. It looks like you were having
Absolutely.
church.
Well, we were, and when you add new songs to your set, you don't know how people are going to respond.
Right.
But that song was a big hit every single night. People responded to that song just powerfully, energetically. By the end of that song, no one was in their seat, and we didn't tell them to get up; they just did. So, those are all good signs, you know.
Absolutely. Russ, this is a fan based podcast. And so we have people writing in all the time with different questions for artists. And we had a fan of you guys. His name is Mark from Long Island, New York. And he wants to know the story behind the classic Newsong song Miracles.
Well, here's the story. We were at some theater somewhere. I don't remember where we were, but we were getting ready to do a concert. We were on a tour, and we had a little extra time that afternoon. And sometimes the guys in Newsong, as you know, there's a band of really good musicians. So we may start playing something to sound check, and before you know it, there's a groove that's going, you know. And so one day we were checking all our instruments, and I was checking my guitar, and we just kind of started playing the changes, the musical changes that became the chorus of Miracles. And I just started singing, I believe in miracles because I'm a miracle myself. I just started singing that. And the guy that was playing guitar for us at the time said, "Oh man, we've got to write this. This is a song. We got to write it." And so, here's the thing. So that song really came out of, there was kind of a debate, if you will, in the church at that time about whether or not the age of miracles had passed. Is God still in the miracle working business? You know, is God still move the way they did do, or is all that we have God's history and His Word? You know, is that what we have? So there was kind of a debate in the church about miracles, whether God still did miracles or not. You know, we're so good at separating ourselves sometimes in the church, and we'll do it, you know, doctrinally. We'll let that become the thing that separates us. And so we just thought, we know. I said in a conversation, I know for a fact that God still works miracles because my testimony is a miracle. The fact that I'm saved is a miracle. The fact that God found me where He did and drew me out of that and put me here is a miracle. So I believe in miracles because I'm a miracle myself. And that really became the seedbed, if you will, for that song, Miracles, and even in the verses, if you remember, I say, I never saw a man that walked on water, never heard a voice could calm the sea, raise the dead or feed 5,000. But in my heart, I still believe because I was in a desperate situation, drowning in a sea of my sin, right? It would take a miracle to save me. That's when I reached toward heaven, felt someone touch me, and I looked up and I saw Him. So it's really just a statement that, hey, God is in the miracle working business. Every time someone is rescued from death to life or from darkness to light, we experience God's miracle working redemptive power. So that was really the story behind Miracles. And we love singing it. Matter of fact, we still sing it. We still sing Miracles when Newsong does a full concert. We still sing Miracles and Can't Keep a Good Man Down. We had to keep those songs, and Arise My Love. We had to keep those three
Christmas
songs in the
shoes.
set. Well, only at Christmas
Only at
because
Christmas.
it's too emotionally draining to sing the Christmas shoes all year long.
Yeah, I think you told me at one time, you said that's the best, worst Christmas song ever.
It is. I tell people everyone else in the world cries because it's so sad, and I cry because it helps pay for my Christmas bonus every year. Because
Thank you,
when you
Jesus.
have the Christmas shoes, when you have Arise My Love, you have to sing somewhere on Easter Sunday. When you have the Christmas shoes, you have to do a Christmas tour. You just have to.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. Well, you were our first guest, and so we did not have this segment that we're going to do with you. So we're going to do it now. It's called
Okay.
Favorite Things, and so I'm just going to give you a category, and you tell me your favorite thing. Sound good? Favorite food.
Favorite food? Wow, that's really hard to say, but I'm gonna have to go with I don't know, Cracker Barrel pancakes. I kind of have to say that
Do you
maybe.
like anything in them? Chocolate chips or anything?
No, no, no. They got to be straight up. They got to be straight up with some butter on them. Or if it's not breakfast time, pretty much chicken in any form. My wife tells me often that she'll say, "I say, what do you want for lunch? Anything but chicken," because she knows my first thought is going to be something with chicken. I have to have some chicken somewhere. So I even
Now,
put chicken on my pizza. So that's yeah.
Louisville's got some good chicken joints. I'm sure you've had Joella's, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've hit all the good chicken joints.
Favorite movie?
Tombstone, easy peasy, and not because Val Kilmer just passed away. I don't know I don't know too many men who don't stop whatever they're doing and watch Tombstone. If it comes across TV, regardless of where it is, you stop and you watch the rest of it. And if Newsong had an official Newsong bus movie, it would be Tombstone. So, but in my opinion, Val Kilmer's uh, as Doc Holliday is maybe the finest moment in cinema. So that's
Yeah.
just my opinion.
Your opinion.
That's
Do you
it.
have a favorite show?
A favorite show? Gosh, this is going to be embarrassing, but I'm going to just be honest. Beat Bobby Flay. That's my favorite
Okay.
show. And if you're talking about nostalgic or old school, and the Andy Griffith Show, I don't think
Yeah.
TV ever got any better than that. I'm sorry, I was raised on it, and
I Love
it's
Lucy's my
nostalgic.
favorite.
Well, that's my daughter-in-law's favorite, and now my granddaughter. I hear she's 7 years old, and I'll hear her somewhere laughing her head off, and she's watching I Love Lucy. She thinks it's the funniest thing she ever saw. So, but the Andy Griffith Show, as far as modern shows are concerned, sometimes my wife will let me watch Beat Bobby Flay when I can't go to sleep at night. So
And it's always on Food Network.
it's well, if you and you know I have it on demand, so
Yeah.
I can watch Beat Bobby Flay even on my cell phone, which admittedly sometimes I do in my bunk on the road. I
My
read
favorite.
more than I watch TV, but I do like Beat Bobby Flay.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen my favorite cooking show was Cutthroat Kitchen. That was so brutal.
Well, that's brutal. That's a brutal yeah. But I used to like the one where I like the one where they've been chopped. So chopped
Chop.
is what
Yeah.
it's called.
Yeah. That's still on.
Yeah, I used to like that show too. And of course I do have the Guy Fieri Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives app on my phone because I
Yep.
travel so much.
Oh,
So my wife
absolutely.
and I will go, okay, we're going through St. Louis. Is there a Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives joint in St. Louis? And if we can get by there and it's mealtime, we will.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite musical artist of all time?
It's really hard to say because I'm a soul music guy, and I like a lot of old rock. Like I like Al Green a lot. I like Aretha Franklin. I like Gladys Knight. I like old soul music a lot. I love old soul music. Um, and so, but I also love. I just like good quality music. So I that old soul music. But I also love uh, Stevie Ray Vaughan. It's my favorite guitar player of all time. But my favorite Christian artist of all time, and I hope this doesn't hurt anyone's feelings, but everybody's kind of got the person that inspired them is Russ Taff. Russ Taff
Mm,
is an icon and the sweetest person, the sweetest Grammy award winning, incredible vocalist you've ever met in your life. He's just the kindest person and can still sing like crazy. So, and when I first became a Christian, Russ Taff was that voice that I grabbed a hold of and said, okay, who is this? I want to, if I'm going to do Christian music, I want to know who this is. So,
yeah.
yeah, it had to be Russ Taff as far as Christian artists are concerned.
What about a favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, man, that's hard to say, but uh, I do like butter pecan. I'm, I like that. It's kind of my favorite. But today, my wife and I were on our way home from Branson, Missouri to Louisville, Kentucky, and we stopped at College of the Ozarks. I don't know if you know
Okay.
about this place. but they call it Hard Work University because all the students literally work their way through college. They work on campus, and they've got a creamery, a restaurant. They roast their own coffee. They have a great nursing program there. It's just an incredible school, but their ice cream is second to none. And today, I stopped in there. My wife and I stopped in there to bring some goodies home to our kids, and I just happened by the creamery by chance and had some coconut fudge almond ice cream that was extraordinary. It
Mm.
was, you know,
You felt the Lord when you ate it.
lick the bowl kind of good. It was that good. I didn't do it because there were people present, but I do love ice cream. My wife knows that that's one way to just cheer me up is to help me find some good ice cream.
Yeah, absolutely. What about, is there a favorite podcast that you listen to?
Oh, yeah, the podcast. I not real. I don't really listen to podcasts. That's probably a terrible thing to tell you.
Oh,
Um,
it's all right.
uh, but I do enjoy. I guess because of what I do. When Mary and I are driving, we have XM and we listen to Forensic Files like over and over. I'm wondering if I turn up missing one day, if I come up missing and they can't figure out what happened to me, it's because my wife listened to so much Forensic Files that she figured out how to get rid of me and not get caught. But we like Mary and I really enjoy who done it mystery kind of stuff, and so we like true crime podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
But also because of what I do for a living, and because I've been so blessed to do it for so long, I've enjoyed some of the artists that Andy Chrisman has on his podcast. He's got the One
Yeah.
Degree of, and I had the privilege this past week of being his guest on that podcast, but
Mm.
I had listened to it before, and he interviews a lot of the guys that influenced me in Christian music, the guys from White Heart or the guys from Petra, or he's had Roger Breland of Truth on there. He's had a lot of folks that, to me are the standards. They're the guys whose shoulders we're all standing on when we walk out on stage on WinterJam, and to hear their heart, hear those discussions. And he has had a lot of the guys that are songwriters that I've admired or even written with over the years. Every once in a while, I'll catch one of his podcasts, but for the most part, my wife and I are trying to do police work. We're listening to podcasts that are true crime. We're trying to solve these crimes that are unsolved around the nation.
Yeah, yeah. Our favorite, well, it's not a podcast, it's a show, but my son, he'll be 14 next month, but he's like, you all are so demented, but we love the show Criminal Minds. Like it's so
It is really interesting.
it's a good
That's
show.
yeah.
It's
We
been on
like.
forever.
Oh yeah. Well, my wife loves Perry Mason, but only in
Yeah.
black and white. Like she likes the old Perry Mason. I think she likes the way that it's shot, and she likes the. And there's so many like famous actors and actresses that were on there early in their career.
Yeah.
So and Mary's a deep dive kind of person. So if she watches it, she's like, "Oh, that guy looks familiar." So she'll pause it and she starts digging. She'll go down the rabbit hole to find out who the actors are on that episode and where they came from and what else they did. And she likes to tie all that stuff together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you passed, you did a good job on that. And so
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Russ, what else is next for you guys, and how can our viewers and listeners keep up with you all?
Well, you can always follow us on the socials, or you can check us out at newsongonline.com, or you can find me, Russ Lee. I'm Russ Lee Music. I'm everywhere on Instagram and Facebook. I'm in all those places. You can find us there, and I hope that they'll listen to our new project. I hope your listeners and your viewers will listen to our new project. And here's, as a favor to me, you don't owe me anything. But when you leave the house to run errands that day, since you're already paying for it, just say, Alexa, play Newsong's new album called Church People. And so just let it kind of permeate through the house like potpourri. Yeah. And if it plays for 10 hours, then you'll be making like a 10-cent donation to Newsong's ministry.
Yeah, you're about right.
Yeah, because royalties are not what they used to be. They're just not.
No.
But I hope those songs will encourage people. We have a song on the album called I'm always talking to Jesus. And that song has gotten such a really good response. I've even had people say, I was going through a really difficult time and I felt so far away from the Lord. And that song just really encourages me just to pray. I realize that all I have to do with God is have an honest conversation with him, and that's prayer. And that makes me feel connected. And, so hearing those good reports about the album, like you said, about Good Life and that song, I'm always talking to Jesus, and seeing the response to church people, it's very encouraging to us. When you've been doing this as long as we have, um, to do something that you're proud of, that you feel like is relevant and relative, and stylistically, it's pleasing to you. You would enjoy listening to it. Um, that's a reward in and of itself, and to see people kind of resonate with that is such a blessing that never grows old to us. It just encourages us to keep doing what we're doing. So yeah, you can find us anywhere you listen to music. You can find church people and any of our other songs, but also on social media you can find Newsong, and you can find Russ Lee there pretty easily. So I hope folks will reach out, stay connected, and I hope they'll be encouraged and blessed by what God allows us to do.
Yeah. Well, Russ, to wrap up, I'd like to see if you'd be willing to share something that God's been doing in your life recently that would help build our viewers and listeners' faith.
Sure. My daughter and her husband and their family in the last 3 years now have been really going through some difficult things medically. A couple years ago, my grandson, who was 2 at the time, was diagnosed with cancer. And so we had to kind of battle through that. And by God's grace, I was home on a Wednesday. He's got a little sister too. And so I was home on Wednesdays, and my wife would go watch the baby, and I would go with my daughter. And Cade, our grandson, I got to take him to chemotherapy most weeks. And so I got to be with him through that struggle, which was very special to me, but very difficult to experience when he's 2 years old and 3 years old. And thankfully, he got to ring the bell at the Cincinnati Children's Hospital. The University of Louisville Children's Hospital at Norton Children's Hospital in Louisville, Kentucky. He got to ring the bell last December, and he was cancer free. But then he immediately broke his leg because the chemo had made his bone density had suffered because of chemotherapy. So we got to walk with him through that and then help him. He was in a cast up to his calf after being just locked down, for over a year and a half. And then he was on the couch for another few months. And then as soon as they kind of got the green light and he was coming out of that and being able to be a little boy again, his dad, they found out his dad had something similar last November, not the same thing, but his dad had a vertebrae that had been eaten away, that had been hollowed out by a tumor. And so his father, who was only 27 at the time, ended up having to go have back surgery and some discs removed and some fusion done and some, replacement things happen. And so it's been like one little medical struggle after another, but 2 things have happened through that. Our family's grown a lot closer. We've seen God move just miraculously again, just through that whole process. And we've watched my daughter and her husband just really stand firm in their faith through some of the most difficult seasons. It'd be difficult for anyone,
Sure.
But for a young couple and a young family to walk through that. And we've seen God's faithfulness in such a powerful way through all of that. And even in their pain, my daughter and her husband, and even my grandson, even in their pain, they ministered so mightily to us just by their faith and their faithfulness. And plus, all of us being able to be there and walk with them through that, it's just, our family was already close, but it's brought us even closer. Our siblings and their families and my wife and I have really been able to see just the hand of God and hear the voice of God and to see the provision of God and just to experience his faithfulness in a whole new way. It's the kind of trials that you would never pick ever. You wouldn't go back and repeat them if you had a choice. But it's so easy for us to look back and see God's faithfulness through the most difficult seasons for them. And so, it's hard to thank God for the storms. We like to thank him for the victories, But my wife and I are very grateful for how present and powerful God's been through all of this, And I would just want to remind your listeners, your viewers, that God is a God of faithfulness. It's his nature. He can't deny himself. And when we look for his faithfulness in things around us, either a friend that reaches out or a family member or our church, we can see little kisses from God. We can see little moments where God's fingerprints are so evident if we're looking for those. And, I'd want to remind them too that prayer gets highly underrated. We pray a lot when we need it the most, when we feel like we need it the most. But prayer is really our relational conversations with God, And so I just encourage your listeners, your viewers, to speak to him often and frequently, and to read his word, because that's how he speaks to us through voices of encouragement. There are people around us who are ardent, passionate, loving followers of Jesus, who can speak hope and encouragement into our lives. Those are the kind of people we need to surround ourselves with, when we go through the storm. The ones that are solid and strong, that have walked through some of that stuff before, or those that just love the Lord and have great faith. And we've seen all of those folks present through this last 2.5 years, with our daughter and her husband. And so we just thank God for his faithfulness, and we expect it now because that's who he is, and we count on it. And so I hope that your listeners, your viewers, will, if they're going through something difficult, I hope that they'll be reminded that God is close. Even in our weakness, he remains faithful, because it's his undeniable nature to be faithful.
Amen. And you guys wrote a song called "Faithful" a few years back that
We sure did.
me and my wife and I will listen to quite often when we are going through some difficult times. And I'm like, he is faithful no matter what. So,
That's it. Well, thank you. That's
yeah,
amen.
Church People is a fabulous album. It's your best work yet, Russ. And
Thank
just
you,
keep
buddy.
doing what you guys are doing. Download, stream the album, buy the cassette tape.
I don't know if that's available. You may have to do that at home. You may have to download it to your computer and then pull something out of the closet to create a cassette. I don't know if that's, although I did see some cassettes recently, so they may be making a comeback. I don't know.
Someone might be listening right now. Dad, what is a cassette?
It's true. You may have to do a little Google search or go to the Smithsonian Institute, and maybe there's one on display. Wherever your listeners, viewers get their music, they'll be able to find us, and they'll be able to find Church People. So I hope it'll encourage them. I hope they enjoy it, and I hope it ministers to them, and I hope they love it enough to share it with someone else.